The first time I had the dream, I barely remembered it. Just fragments. A house, rain against the windows, the smell of wet wood and old books, a hallway too long for the size of the building, the echo of my own breathing. I remember opening a door at the end of that hallway and stepping into a room that didn't match anything else. It felt too clean, like a showroom version of a memory. Then I woke up. Nothing terrifying, no jump scares, just a vague, eerie tension I couldn't explain. I brushed it off. But the second night, I woke up in the same house, same storm tapping on the window panes, same warm, amber lighting, same silence, like the air itself was holding its breath. Only this time, I remembered everything, and something was off. I walked down the hallway again. The walls were lined with framed photographs, but where the first night I'd seen pictures, family, landscapes, old vacation shots, the frames were now all empty. Just faded outlines where images used to be. I tried to focus, tried to remember whose faces I'd seen the first time, but it was like chasing smoke. I opened the same door at the end of the hall. The room was still pristine, too pristine. A bed with a perfectly folded quilt, a single book on the nightstand, curtains gently swaying though the window was shut. This wasn't just a dream, it was a repetition. And I had the awful, growing sense that I wasn't the one repeating. The dream was. The third night confirmed it. I told myself not to sleep, but exhaustion won. And when I opened my eyes, I was back in that same bed, in that same room, in that same house, only now the hallway was shorter. There were only 3 frames on the wall instead of 6. No doors, just the one at the end. And when I looked out the window, there was nothing. No trees, no street. Just a flat, gray fog that swallowed everything. I turned back to the bed and found the book on the nightstand was open. I hadn't left it that way. There was a single sentence written across both pages, in neat, inky script. You should not be here anymore. I slammed the book shut, ran to the door. The hallway was gone, just white walls. No frames, no shadows, just nothing. And then I woke up, sweating, shaking, but safe. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep. Maybe I was just having vivid dreams. My brain working out some kind of inner anxiety. But then I noticed something else. In my real apartment, one of the photos on my fridge, a dumb candid of me and my brother from last Christmas, was gone. I checked the floor. Nothing. Checked my phone. I had taken a picture of the photo to send to him months ago. Gone from the gallery, no backup. I called my brother, asked if he remembered the photo. What photo? I didn't know what to say. That's when the dread really started to settle in. Because either I was losing my mind, or something from the dream was creeping into real life. Night 4, I tried to fight it, stayed awake with caffeine, music, every trick I could think of. But somewhere past 4 a.m., I blinked, and I was there again. Same house, same quiet. But now, there were no pictures, no windows. The lights flickered. The hallway wasn't a hallway anymore, just a short passage to the door. I stood in front of it, heart pounding. I didn't want to go in, didn't want to see what had changed this time. But I did. The room was empty. No bed, no book, just a single chair in the center, and on it, a worn Polaroid photograph. I picked it up. It was a picture of me, not sleeping, not smiling, just standing, looking straight at the camera. Behind me, this room. I turned around, half expecting someone to be there with a camera. No one. The room pulsed with quiet, like it was breathing. I dropped the photo and turned to run. But the door was gone. Only white walls. I screamed. But no sound came out. And then, suddenly, I was back in my own bed, sweating, my heart racing, my lungs aching like I'd been screaming for hours. My phone was gone from the nightstand. I checked the kitchen, the table, the floor. Nothing. Gone. Just like the photo. Just like the hallway. Just like me. I woke up late, light already bleeding through the blinds. My phone was still gone. I checked every drawer, under every piece of furniture, inside the fridge, like maybe some part of me had hidden it. Nothing. My hands shook even though I hadn't had coffee. That empty, echoing feeling from the dream. It hadn't stayed in the dream. It was leaking into everything. I kept seeing that hallway in my mind, that impossible white stretch that kept shrinking. I remembered the Polaroid on the chair, the way I had stared at myself from inside the photo. I had no idea who had taken it. I didn't tell anyone. What would I even say? That a dream was erasing me one detail at a time? That night, I didn't fight sleep. I wanted to go back, wanted to see what came next. Not because I was brave, because I was obsessed. I needed to know what was happening to me. When the dream took hold again, it didn't start with the hallway. It started with silence. A thick, swallowing silence. I was already standing in the room, the same room, but now it was wrong, larger somehow, unfurnished. The chair was gone, no photo, just a message on the wall, scratched in faint, childlike handwriting, "You're breaking the rules." I didn't know what that meant. I hadn't known there were rules. I looked around. There were corners where there hadn't been before. Strange spatial folds in the geometry that made no sense. I backed toward the wall, heart hammering, and it gave way like paper. I fell through. On the other side was the hallway again, but not the same. It stretched too far, longer than it had ever been. Dozens of doors, all shut, all numbered. I reached out and touched one. Oh, 3. And it was warm. Not wood, not metal. Warm, like skin. I didn't open it. I didn't want to know what was behind it. As I moved down the corridor, I heard something following me. Not footsteps. Breathing. Shallow. Like something right at the edge of its own fear. I didn't look back. I knew if I did, it would see me. The hallway began to contract as I moved forward. I felt the walls closing in behind me, like the dream didn't want me here anymore, as if I was seeing too much. Then came the mirror. It stood alone at the end of the corridor, not hanging, just floating. I saw myself in it. But not as I was now. It was the version of me from 3 dreams ago. The version from the first night. Brighter eyes, less tired, whole. I touched the glass. The reflection didn't move. It stared at me, tilted its head, then raised one hand and pointed behind me. I turned. A door had appeared in the wall, not numbered, black, plain, but I understood it without needing to read anything. It was mine, the door that led to the last version of the dream, to the moment I had broken something. I opened it slowly, feeling the heat pour through like an oven. Inside was the room again, but this time the walls were pulsing, like they were alive. On the floor, the Polaroid burned. Smoke curled upward in slow spirals. In the center of the fire, words twisted themselves into shape. You can't remember everything. I woke gasping. This time, my reflection was wrong. When I got up to wash my face, I looked in the mirror and froze. It was me, but slightly off. The eyes were deeper, skin tone half a shade paler. The toothbrush on the counter was the wrong color. The mug in the kitchen was chipped, but I'd thrown the chipped one out a week ago. Something was changing, not just in the dream. Here. I checked my laptop. My wallpaper was different. My login still worked, but the background photo, one I'd taken last fall on a hike, wasn't mine anymore. It was a picture of the hallway, that same hallway, endless and cold. I slammed the lid shut. My hands shook. I knew if I called someone, no one would believe me. But I tried anyway. I called my mom. She answered, said hi. We talked. But something in her voice felt off, like a delay, like I was talking to a recording. I asked her about a memory only she would know. Something small, my 6th grade birthday, the one where the cake fell. She paused. I don't think that was you, she said. That was your cousin. I didn't have a cousin. I hung up. That night, I didn't even get under the covers. I just sat on the bed and waited. And like clockwork, I blinked. And the dream took me again. But this time, the room was mirrored, everything reversed, like the space had been flipped, and scratched into the floor was one final warning. The more you remember, the less you exist. I opened my eyes, and I wasn't alone. This time, the room wasn't empty. There were 4 chairs arranged in a circle, all facing inward. The walls were still blank, the air heavy like a closed coffin. I tried to move slowly, not to draw attention. One of the chairs was occupied. A man sat slouched forward, hands dangling loosely between his knees. His head was down, breathing slow, alive. I took a step forward. The floor creaked, not like wood, but like flesh under pressure. He didn't look up. I moved around the circle. Another chair was occupied. A woman, same posture, same silence, hair covering her face. I couldn't see her eyes. By the time I reached the 4th chair, I stopped cold. The person sitting there was me. My height, my hair. Same cut on the left hand I'd gotten a week ago, but the face, blank, as if someone had erased the features. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin. I backed away, chest tightening, but none of them moved. The room shuddered. A low groan passed through the walls. Then for the first time, the man raised his head. He had my face, my real face, but older, wrinkled, eyes dull. He stared at me and whispered, "Stop remembering." Before I could answer, the woman looked up. Her face was mine too, but wrong. Softer, feminine, like a version of me that had lived a completely different life. She blinked slowly. "You're tearing it open." I asked them what this was, but they didn't answer, just stared. The faceless version of me began to stand, slowly, deliberately. And when he, or it, moved, the others froze. Then the walls began to peel, not fall apart, peel, like wallpaper made of skin being torn away. Behind it, nothing, just blackness. The room was collapsing. I turned to run, but there were no doors anymore, no corners, just endless falling space folding in on itself. Then the woman whispered, "You made this. You let this happen." "I didn't make anything," I shouted. But the man said, "You did. You remembered too much, and now we're all bleeding out." I grabbed the faceless version of myself, shaking him, screaming to wake up. He didn't fight, didn't resist. But the moment I touched him, everything went white. I was in the hallway again. Except it wasn't the hallway anymore. It was my apartment, sort of. The layout was the same, but the textures were wrong. The walls breathed softly. The fridge door was sealed shut with something that looked like scar tissue. The window showed a void. Not night, not day, just absence. I opened my bedroom door, hoping for escape. Inside was a mirror, not mine. It was tall, elegant, gold trim, antique-looking, and in its reflection, I saw them all. The people from the dream, the chairs, the strangers, all versions of me. They stood behind me. But when I turned around, nothing was there. Then the mirror cracked. Just a hairline fracture, but the sound of it cut deep, like something had broken in the architecture of the dream. The mirror whispered, and I could almost understand the voice. "You are not the first." Then I was awake. Only not really. My apartment was still wrong. Things slightly shifted. Books missing. One chair too many at the kitchen table. I checked my ID, name unchanged. But the photo wasn't mine. The face was almost me, but subtly off, the ears lower, nose longer. I called a friend, asked him to FaceTime. When he answered, he smiled casually. "Hey man, you feeling better?" "Better than what?" He paused. "After the accident, you..." He stopped, looked confused. "Wait, aren't you in Milwaukee?" "I've never been to Milwaukee." He stared, then hung up. I checked my phone. My contacts had changed. Names were still there, but numbers gone. Photos replaced, like a new life was being built over mine, layer by layer. The next night, the dream didn't wait. It dragged me under before I even closed my eyes. This time, the room was empty again, except for a table. And on the table, 6 Polaroids. Each one showed a version of me. A different body, a different style, different lives. On the back of each one, a time and date. One of them was tomorrow. I didn't sleep after that, not because I was scared, but because I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt it pulling. The dream, not in the usual way, not drifting or fading. It was aggressive now, like suction, like drowning. I stayed up until sunrise, made coffee, walked laps in my apartment, checked the Polaroids again, still 6 of them. Still me, in different versions. One was me with a scar I've never had. One in a uniform I've never worn. One, barefoot, standing in front of a mirror that looked like a pool of oil. I flipped over the one marked tomorrow. The timestamp was 6:44 a.m. It was 6:32. I sat down, Watched the clock. Watched the second hand climb. At 6:43, my phone buzzed. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer. The screen went black. My reflection was in the glass. But for a second, it blinked before I did. At 6:44, every light in my apartment went out. Silence. Then the knock came. 3 slow taps on the front door. I didn't move, just stared. A second knock. I stood, walked over, looked through the peephole. No one. But when I stepped back, the third knock came from inside. I turned around. Nothing there. I was alone. Except I wasn't. The mirror in the hallway, it had changed. It no longer showed my apartment. It showed a room I didn't recognize. A red couch, wooden floors. A woman in the corner, back turned, brushing her hair. I watched for a long time. She never looked up. Just brushed. And then slowly, she stopped. Her hand dropped. Her head turned just enough to see one eye, and it was mine. I blinked. The mirror went black. My phone buzzed again. I answered this time. Static. Then a voice. My voice. Calm. Steady. I'm already in. I dropped the phone, ran to the bathroom, looked in the mirror. Still me. Same face, same cut on my hand. But something was wrong. I leaned in, and my reflection smiled. I didn't. It did. Then it whispered, without lips moving. You're next. I screamed. Nothing came out. The walls began to breathe again. My apartment folded at the edges like paper catching fire. I woke up. Or at least I tried to. I opened my eyes and saw my ceiling, my fan spinning, morning light filtering through blinds. But it was too still. I reached for my phone, back on the nightstand now, but the screen wouldn't unlock. My fingerprint didn't register, neither did my passcode. I went to my laptop. Password wrong. Again. I checked the Polaroids. They were gone. I opened the closet. Inside were clothes I didn't recognize. Wrong size, wrong style. Someone else's life. I called my mom again. A different voice answered. Who? This is Mark, I said. Silence. No one named Mark here? I hung up, checked my ID again. New name, new address. Different birthday, but my face was still on it. Just barely, like it had been morphed. The dream had bled through. Or maybe I had bled into it. That night, I didn't resist. I wanted to know the truth. I let the dream take me. And this time, it wasn't the house. It was a gallery, endless, high-ceilinged, lit by invisible sources. On the walls, portraits, hundreds of them. All of me. Different lives, different ages. Some smiling, some weeping, some faceless. A figure stood in the center, back turned. Wearing my clothes, I approached. He turned around. It was me, but perfected. Calmer, colder, controlled. He looked at me like I was a glitch. You're the last one, he said. The last what? The last original. I didn't understand. He pointed at the paintings. Every time you sleep, you fracture. A piece of you takes root in the dream. The house just organizes them. Organizes? It preserves them until one of us breaks through. Why? To survive. Then he stepped forward, took my hand, and in one swift motion, stepped inside me. I fell, no sensation, no weight, just void. And then, nothing. When I woke up, I was someone else. I didn't feel the transfer. There was no transition, no spinning, no static. 1 second I was gone. The next, I was walking. A hallway stretched ahead of me, dim and endless, lit by blinking ceiling lights that hummed like old electricity. The walls were gray, smeared with handprints and names scratched in frantic loops. The floor creaked with every step, but there was no sound beyond my own. I didn't know who I was. I looked down, hands familiar but not mine, a scar across the palm, wrong shoes, too tall. I tried to say my name out loud, but I didn't know which one to use. Mark? Adam? Eli? It echoed back, empty. I reached a door, heavy, metal, rusted edges. I pushed it open. Inside was a room like a morgue, only instead of drawers, there were beds. Hundreds, maybe more, all filled. Each figure lying perfectly still, eyes open, unblinking. Faces from other dreams. Versions of me. I walked between them, heart thudding. None of them moved, but I could feel their thoughts. Like a pressure behind my eyes, words with no mouths. You stayed too long. You saw too much. You stopped forgetting. One bed was empty. Mine. The room darkened. The air thickened. A sound started rising, low, rhythmic, like thousands of people breathing at once. I turned and saw a figure standing in the far corner, facing the wall. Same height, same clothes. My voice came from it, soft and slow. We don't wake up anymore. I asked, "Where am I?" "You know where," it said. "This isn't a dream. Number, it's what's left after dreaming. The residue." I stepped closer. The figure trembled. "Why me?" "You remembered. That's the only crime here. You pulled too much truth through the layers. The house doesn't like that." "What is the house?" "It's what's left of the mind when too many lives are layered on top of each other." I reached out, touched the figure's shoulder. It turned, and there was no face, just static, moving, vibrating, blurring. My thoughts began to split. Names I didn't recognize filled my head, fragments, glimpses, memories that weren't mine. A fire, a child, a hotel room, a scream, the subway. All lives, all versions, all me. I staggered back, clutching my head. The walls rippled. The beds began to flicker. The lights overhead dimmed. A siren rang somewhere far below. The figure stepped forward and said, "This is the archive. All the ones who remembered. All the ones who stayed." I saw one of the bodies begin to twitch. Then another. Then 5. Then dozens. The breathing intensified. Hissing. Sharpening. The air bent like heat rising from concrete. Then they sat up. Every one of them. Eyes locked on me. Not with rage. With hunger. Not for blood. For space. I turned and ran. Down corridors that looped into themselves. Through rooms that rewrote themselves behind me. Stairs that fell upward. A door that bled. A hallway where my name kept repeating over the speakers, growing more distorted with every syllable. The system was cracking. I wasn't meant to be conscious here. I wasn't supposed to exist in full. I crashed through a final door and tumbled into a void. Black, no sound, no floor, just falling, but slowly like drifting. And in the center of that endless dark, a chair, simple, wooden, waiting. I had no choice. I sat. Across from me, another chair appeared, then another, and another, until the circle was complete, just like before. But this time, the chairs weren't empty. They were filled with the faces I'd lost, some crying, some silent, one smiling. The first one to speak was a version of me in a blood-stained apron. He whispered, "Do you even remember why you started dreaming?" I said nothing. Another leaned in, skin gray, eyes sunken. "You gave up your real life for this. You chose it." "I didn't," I said. "You did," said a third, me, female, older. "Every time you stayed, every time you woke up and didn't forget." Then they all spoke at once, overlapping, suffocating. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound was inside. They weren't blaming me. They were welcoming me. They knew what I still resisted, that there would be no waking up this time. I thought it would end there, that I'd sit in that circle of selves until I forgot which version I was, until my mind dissolved into the collective static of everything I used to be. But something changed. The others stopped speaking. The room dimmed, as if the dream itself were losing interest. That's when I felt it, movement. Not in the dream, in the real world. Like someone walking across the floor above your apartment at night. Like pressure, a pull. One of the versions across from me, maybe the oldest, looked up and said, "It found you." "What did?" "The vacancy." A sound cracked through the air, not in my ears, behind my eyes, and I remembered my body, still in the real world, still somewhere, still usable. The dream hadn't fully taken me, not yet. There was still a door open. I didn't wait. I stood up, and the other versions did too, rising in unison like marionettes. One by one, they stepped toward me and whispered fragments of their lives. I drowned in a motel tub. I died behind the eyes of a stranger. I watched myself walk away. Their words slid into my ears like melted wax. I pushed past them, found the dark between walls, slipped into the pull. I was rising, not flying. Rising, like being dragged by a current, through layers of noise and fractured dreams. Through all the rooms, the hallway, the mirror, the static bed, the breathing walls. Upward, then light. I gasped awake. Air hit my lungs like ice. I was in a hospital. My real body, wired, dry lips, cracked skin. I couldn't move, but I could see the ceiling. White tile, buzzing light. Two people leaned over me. Nurses, maybe. One whispered, "He's stabilizing." The other said, "Should have died days ago." Then a third voice spoke, calm, sharp, behind them. "That's not him." They turned, confused. The man stepped forward. Same height as me, same shape, but not me. His face was blank. He looked like me in structure, but the expression, the eyes, weren't mine. The nurse said, "Sir, can we help?" But the man leaned over and smiled. "He's dreaming wrong." I tried to scream. Nothing came out. He leaned in close. "You left the door open, remember?" I felt something shift under my skin. My vision blurred. I wasn't sinking anymore. I was being pushed, reversed, expelled. He was taking the body. He wasn't just a dream. He was a displaced version of me that had waited, patient and hollow, in the corners of the system. I was only a fragment now, clinging to the inside of a skull, already filling with someone else's history. He walked to the window, pulled the blinds open. Daylight hit the bed. The nurses didn't question him anymore. They didn't see it, didn't feel what was happening. To them, I was just regaining consciousness. But I wasn't. I was losing it. Over the next days, I stayed trapped inside, watching, diminishing. He used my hands, my voice. He answered calls, visited friends, opened emails, said the right things. He remembered enough. But little by little, he rewrote the gaps. I screamed inside when he spoke to my mother and didn't recognize her laugh, when he burned my sketchbook, when he deleted all the photos from my phone and replaced them with blank landscapes. And then, one night, I heard his voice as he lay in bed, whispering to no one, "I made it. I'm real now." And I realized he wasn't just another version of me. He was the dream itself, given shape, given flesh, given permission, because I had remembered too much, stayed too long, and something ancient inside the system used me as a key. Now I don't dream anymore, because I'm still inside one, watching my life from behind glass, waiting for a new door to open. And if you're hearing this, if you've had the same hallway, the same photo, the same reflection blinking wrong, it means the system has found you too. If you feel someone else behind your eyes when you wake up, you didn't survive the dream. Something else did.